What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by Eisner nominated creator Ram V. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. You have written so many great books. I mean, talking about what you're working on right now, you're on Detective Comics, Rare Flavors, you know, The Vigil. You've all this stuff that you're coming out from there, but you've some of my favorite books in the past couple of years of These Savage Shores and The Many Desolate Star, Blue and Green. I mean, I could go on and on.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
So
Someone's
whenever,
reading the books. Hooray.
yeah, I'm reading them. Hey, listen, whenever I bring a creator on, though, I always like to know: have you always liked comics? Did you, was this something that you kind of came into later, or was it always been a part of you?
Yeah, I mean, I used to read them as a kid, although not the more sort of DC Marvel stuff.
Okay.
I read a lot of European comics like Tintin and Asterix the Gaul. And then we had Indian reprints of the King's Comics stuff, the Flash Gordon, the Mandrake, the Phantoms, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, so I read that stuff growing up. And then I fell off comics for the longest time. I was about 13, 14. My dad insisted I had to read real books. And so I got pushed off of comics in that way for quite a few years. And then I had moved to the States when I was 19 to study chemical engineering, and a friend of mine handed me the first volume of Sandman, and that was really kind of that sort of second
Yeah.
childhood, second big door opening into comics for me. And I fell in love with the medium, and fell in love with the idea that, oh, you could do interesting, intelligent things with comics. You were taking what was essentially at least what began as like kids books, and then you were having these like interesting ideas and new takes and
Yeah.
complex takes on them. So um yeah, and then I discovered most of Vertigo, and that blew my mind. So yeah, that was kind of my second gateway into comics, if you will.
So you obviously got back into, like you said, your second gateway into comics.
Uh-huh.
But you said you came stateside to study chemical engineering. Is that correct? What made you then
Yep.
say, you know what? I think I want to create comics.
I mean, I'd been writing since I was about 12 or 13, just as a hobby. Just loved the idea. I think it was Lord of the Rings. I read the trilogy at 12 or 13, and I just fell in love with the idea that you could create this massive sprawling epic. So I remember at 13 sitting down in front of a computer and typing out about 40,000 words of a terribly derivative uh terrible story that no one should read. But I think it was the first time I'd surprised myself with like, oh wait, no one told me I had to do this work, and it didn't feel like work. It felt exciting. I was looking forward to sitting down in front of the screen and typing out words. So I knew from very early on that I wanted to write. And then I'd been drawing as a kid, so I was always artistically inclined as well. Um, so yeah, that had always been there in the back of my mind. And then so I studied to be a chemical engineer, did my master's in chemical engineering at UPenn, and then worked as a chemical engineer for about 3 or 4 years. And then at the end of that fourth year, I just went, you know what, I'm not having fun doing this. I think I was nearing 30 at the time. Um, so I said, I don't want to be 60 and going, I wish I'd done that other thing that I really love doing. So just quit. Started writing stories. A year later, I moved to the UK to study creative writing. So I did a master's in creative writing as well. And then at the end of that course, I self-published my first graphic novel called Black Mamba, which kind of opened a lot of doors for me. I think the next year it was These Savage Shores. The year after that, it was some DC work and Blue and Green. So yeah, it's been a steady sort of climb from 2016, I suppose.
Yeah. So, and was Black Mama, as I was prepping for the interview, I know you were talking a lot on Twitter recently. One of
Mhm.
the tweets you had said was that you kind of would cold email editor and publisher like to present your stuff. Now, and you said like that's kind of just worked for you. Is that, and that was a case with Black Mamba as well?
No, so Black Mamba, I don't know if you saw the tweet I did after that, which said specifically that I cold email editors after I had created my first
Right.
work. So
Yes, I
so
saw
Black
that. Yeah, yeah.
Mamba, yeah. So Black Mamba is something I kickstarted, self-published, put out a hardcover, and I was always of the theory that whatever book I made, whether it was with a publisher or just me on a crowdfunding platform, or just me independently publishing something, it should always look like it belongs
Mm,
with all the top of the line publishing stuff. Um, and so we made like a really well designed hardcover comic. I worked with a bunch of professionals. I paid all of my artists. I paid all the other creators on the book with me. And so we put out this book that, to this day looks quite impressive, I would say.
really good.
And then that's the book. So when I say I cold email editors, it's I emailed them to ask, hey, do you have an address? I would like to send you a hardcover of this book that did really well, that got all these quotes, that we crowdfunded. I'd love to work with you. And yeah, if you enjoyed this book, please get back in touch. And the reason I posted that on Twitter was also that so many people are trying to pitch themselves as creators. Here's who I am. Here's the kind of stuff I like doing, but they don't have finished work.
Mm,
And I find that I hate talking about myself. Like my private life is very different from like the work that I do.
yeah.
And so I want people to hire me because I do good work, not because I'm a nice guy. And so I felt like armed with that work, any communication was always going to be about you read the work and you come back to me if you enjoy it. And I feel like that was an important approach for me. That was a good approach for me.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense because like you said, it looks really nice. That cover art is fantastic on it. And to
Yeah, I
be a
mean, it's how I
hardcover.
discovered working with some of these guys as well. So that cover art is by Anand Radhakrishnan, who then went on to do two other books with me, Blue and Green and Graffiti's Wall. So
And so it makes sense. And like you almost were betting on yourself of, listen, I've got something that I think is good, but also like it presents well, like, and it's complete. Like you can see this. I'm not just selling you on an idea. I'm selling this is what it is.
yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I make.
Yeah.
If you're interested in it,
Let's talk.
let me know. Yeah.
So they kind of, like you said, it seemed like it opened the door a little bit. Then, like you said,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's yours.
I
And
think some of the key people that went out to, I gave a copy to Kieran Gillen, who was very kind enough to provide me a quote. But also then when I was talking to Eric Stephenson at Image about publishing an image book with him, Kieran was like, Eric, you should take Ram seriously. I read his book, it's good. So
yeah,
so that kind of stuff is really, really important. And to me, especially like the recognition of my at the time people who I was looking up to and now my peers, that recognition, and I think goes a lot farther than Twitter followings or anything of that sort.
right.
And then the other person I gave that to was Jamie Rich, who was editor at Vertigo at DC at the time. And this is a story that's very close to my heart. So Vertigo had been the reason I kind of came back into comics, if you will. And so when Jamie reached out and he went, I just read this, it's great. We should do, what do you think about doing a volume 2 at Vertigo? I was like, that's amazing. That's kind of what I want to do. And then a couple of weeks after, he was like, I'm sorry, I'm no longer at Vertigo, so I'm not sure we're going to be taking this book along. And I was quite heartbroken. I was like, oh
Yeah.
man, what a pity. And then a week later, he emails me to go, it's because I'm now editor of the Bat Group, so do you want to come write some Batman for me? And I said, that's a fair trade-off, like a Batman story. Fine, sounds good.
All right. I guess I can. And is that kind of then how you got your foot in the door? Because you said of working with DC then, because you said,
Yeah. My first story was for Jamie. It was with Jorge Fornes. We did a short story called The Nature of Fear, I think, in Batman Secret Files #1. And so that was kind of my first work at DC. I think the next important thing I did there was probably the Justice League Dark Annual.
hmm,
That came about because James Tynan had read The Savage Shores, and he got in touch with his editor at the time, Brittany Holzer, and they came to me and they said, we love this book that you made. Do you want to write a one shot annual? And yeah, and I did a Swamp Thing annual at the time, which would then go on to me writing a Swamp Thing book after. So
Yeah. You did. You got the Justice League Dark stuff, then you had your Swamp Thing, and you
yeah,
did some work on Catwoman. And I think DC finally was like, you know what? We want to keep you around. And now you're currently working on Detective Comics, which has gotta be a cool thing to kind of get to work on one of the second longest running comic books.
yeah, yeah. No, it was one of two occasions in which I've actually called in another creator and gone like, man, I'm doing this. That's pretty cool, right? Like usually I don't allow myself to be overly wowed by the occasion of doing
Yeah.
something because I like to put all that energy into work. But when I was asked to do the Swamp Thing book, I called up Kieran and I said, they asked me to do a Swamp Thing book. And it was a bit intimidating because I live here in London, and whenever someone says Swamp Thing, the first person anyone thinks of is Alan Moore, who is a British writer, came on Swamp Thing when it wasn't really a big title, and then did amazing work. And so it was like, I'm also a writer from Britain, and I've been given this book. I suppose I should do something good with it. So that was the first time I did that,
No
and then I
pressure.
was talking, and then I was talking to Dan Waters right around the time I was having the conversation about Detective with DC, and I went, well, I'm writing the comic that the company is named after. That's pretty
Right.
cool, right? Yeah,
So, uh, how do you then? I want to get into your writing stuff, and since we're in the DC world, we'll stick there for a little bit before we hop over to
yeah.
Rare Flavors and stuff. How is it? Was it for you then to approach Detective Comics here of you know telling a Rom V style story, and Batman, maybe something that hasn't been told? Like, how do you process that? How do you plan for that? Because I feel like a lot of your other stuff, like you're not working with intellectual properties and as much when you're not in the DC world, so you kind of have more freedom, but you might be tied a little bit more to what people have done in past. So how do you bring your own flavor to Detective Comics?
I mean, I think you have to. I don't think there is any other way.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I don't love and respect the work a lot of others have done, but for me, I didn't start at DC off of being a fan and then having emailed editors for years or any of that stuff. I DC came to me because of work that I had done.
Yeah.
And so it would be foolish for me to say, okay, now that I've been invited to do what I do, I'm gonna do something that everyone expects me to do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, so it has to be your own flavor. It has to be your own. At least that's the reason I tell stories, is because I like telling stories the way I tell them. I like showing people the world the way I see it. Um, and so I had, for the longest time, thought of Batman as this kind of gothic, tragic character purely because I hadn't read a lot of Batman comics as a kid, and my touchstone was the Batman animated show.
Mm.
Um, and that one had such a great neo gothic vibe, noir vibe about it, that I went, of course, the comics must all be like that. And then I read the comics and I was like, wait, actually, at least the more recent ones have kind of moved away from that
Yeah.
vibe, and it's much more superheroics and gadgets and cars and technology and whatnot. And I went, okay, well, there's like, I don't know, 3 books, 4 books that are doing that. Then I should do the book that's not doing that.
Yeah.
I should do the book that's uniquely me. And I love the sort of old school Greek tragedies, the old school operas. I've watched so many of them. I've watched plays, Carmen, Phantom of the Opera, um, the great sort of Japanese westerns that were, I mean, Japanese Kurosawa movies that were inspired by Greco-Roman tragedies and Shakespeare and whatnot. So I said, okay, let me take all of that and bring it to Batman, because Batman is essentially such a Shakespearean tragedy, right?
Right.
Here he is, the if let me put it to you this way: here he is, the prince of a newly killed king and queen, if you will,
Mhm.
and a prince who must now take on the mantle of being the leader of this incredibly corrupt state. Um, and he also chooses at night to dress up as a phantom and go out and enact justice of his own. And that will forever remain a tribute to the innocence that he lost when his parents died. Now, that is such a Shakespearean story.
Yeah. Yes, it
Uh,
is.
you know, and I felt like there wasn't anyone seeing that, and for me, it was obviously there.
Yeah.
Um, and I always find that I have fun telling stories where I'm like, "Oh, I see something," and no one else seems to be looking at it that way.
Well, now I'm only going to be able to read it like a Shakespearean, So, well, that's so cool. Like, because you have such a unique talent of, and I was just reading the latest issue of Detective Comics, and
Yeah.
you also did art in one of the backup stories.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, save some
Um,
talent for the rest of us now.
um, I mean, it's just I think it's part of my personality. People keep asking me like, "Ah, how do you manage to do this?" It's because every once in a while I'll come across something that I really like, and then I will like it so intensely that nothing else exists for like the next, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months. And if you do something just incessantly for 7, 8 months, then you achieve some measure of proficiency at doing it.
Hmm.
And I've been this way with art since I was, I don't know, 8, 7, 10. I mean, I've never taken it seriously, but I've always been like, okay, I'm gonna draw now. And then I get into these phases where that's all I do. I draw all the time, fill up entire sketchbooks doing it. And then I walk away and it's always been a hobby.
Yeah.
Um, but more recently, because also sometimes it takes encouragement, right? So because I'm hanging out with all of these artists that I really love, I've been talking to Evan Kagel, Esad Ribic, Alex Maleev, all these people whose work is like amazing to me. And then when those guys are like, "Oh, you can actually draw, like that's pretty good," it's like, "Oh, can I? Okay." uh, and so eventually it led to this sort of critical point where I was like, I can do 2 pages. Come on, I can do 2 pages in a comic. And so I did. I reached out to my editor, who had no idea I could draw. So they were just like, "What? That's really weird. Why is a writer coming to me and saying they want to draw 2 pages?" And so he was a bit suspicious, Ben Mears, and he was like, "Actually, why don't you send me the script? We'll send it to some artists who will do a really good job with it." And I said, "Look, let me draw a page and send it to you. If you hate it, we can just send my script to another artist." He was like, "Okay, fair enough." So I drew the first page, sent it to him. He was like, "Okay, hold on a second." Went away for 20 minutes, came back. He's like, "Okay, you're now officially a DC writer and artist. We'll get you set up with a page rate. You can do 2 pages." So I was like, "All right, sweet."
So, is this your first published artwork in comics?
Yes, technically, yes, published by someone other than me. Like, because
Okay.
Black Mamba was a self-published book,
Yeah.
there is a page of my artwork in the back of that book. Um, so yeah, so this is the first time I've had art published by someone who is not me.
Is that a route you want to go down at all of doing more art, or is it just like when the opportunity arises, you're like, I want to dabble in that a little bit more, but I want to stay in writing, or
I mean, I want to do something interesting with it.
yeah,
I don't want to do the sequential art, because comic book artists, you have my greatest respect. You guys are crazy to be doing this on a monthly 24 pages basis. I have no idea how to do it. And I would go crazy if I had to do that. So I would not be doing that. But I love the idea of using art as a storytelling tool as well. Um, and so maybe when this DC exclusive runs out, I'll take some time to do a illustrated prose meets comics
mm,
meets found narrative kind of project that's brewing up in my head. So
nice. Well, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because
Hmm.
one of the things that I reached out originally for, um, as I've been loving your DC stuff, but holy buckets, rare flavors was you knocked it out of the park when I read issue one, and then at reading issue two at this recording. Let's talk rare flavors because this is great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's always it's always that thing, right? Like you do all the superhero work.
Hmm.
Why would I want to do something similar when I'm doing creator own? Creator own is my place to just be like, let me tell stories that nobody else, I don't see anybody else telling. So all of my creator owned work is born out of that. They're all kind of weird ideas, like, hey, let's do a jazz horror book, or
Right.
let's do a book about the goddess of death who keeps dying at the end of each issue. So it's the outlet for me to do things that my mind is thinking about when it doesn't have to be, super powered people in spandex. Um so yeah, it's always been an event for that. And rare flavors, I think the idea came to me when I was watching Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain,
Yeah.
and I was watching it knowing that he had passed away the way he passed away, and there was something so heartbreaking about
Yeah.
watching a TV show that he shot, knowing how things ended up for him.
Right.
And somewhere in that tragedy, I said, there's a story about humanity, about being human, and how food is about us trying to reach out and make connections with other people. And so, yeah, it kind of started from there. And at some point in time, that wouldn't it be funny if, like, a notorious human eating demon from Indian mythology was like, no, you guys have it all wrong. I'm not terrible. I just really love food. And so yeah, that's how that series came about. I pitched it to Boom, and when they heard it, they were like, let's turn it into a comic. So
And you're is correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole creative team from Many
same
Deaths is
same team
same
from
team.
Many Deaths, yeah, doing
Nope.
it. Another India centric book which Philippe loves. He loves the culture and the tradition of the place. He's been there a few times. So we're doing that, and then maybe it's too early to say, but we're also going to be doing a book after this one, which for a change will be set in Portugal, which is where Philippe is from. So I think that would be cool. Yeah.
Nice. So when you're approaching something different like this, like you said, you're trying to find a unique story to tell here. You you can't do a food comic and not throw in recipes, right? I feel like, and so far each issue has had a recipe. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's ongoing or not, but are these recipes that are from your own or from people that have been close to you or that you've just found?
No, these are things that I have tasted and I have had, and some of the parts of the story are from my own travels in India. So like I have actually gone out into the desert and seen the chili fields.
Yeah.
I have spent a night with like a nomadic performing troupe of Rajasthani desert performers who cook food for you, and they cook lal mas at night. So that was great. That's where the second recipe comes
Yeah.
from. Obviously, the recipe I'm taking from legitimate sources, because I wouldn't I wouldn't add writer, artist, and chef to my repertoire.
I mean, you never
Um,
know. You're like, I gotta
uh,
save some for other people. All right.
I do love cooking, but I'm nowhere near good enough to design my own recipes. Um, and so the thing I really wanted to do with this book, outside of the story and the concept, was I just love the idea that food is also story. Like making food is also narrative, because how someone makes something says something about their culture, about their background, about like cooking fried rice in a pot at home versus cooking fried rice on a giant flaming wok out on the street.
Yeah.
They're two completely, they're stories, they're not just food. Because when you eat the fried rice, sure, it's the same fried rice, maybe. But if you really look into the taste, if you really look into the flavor of it, the thing that comes from the street, the thing that comes from that sort of a culture, that sort of a background, will always carry a different flavor, more nuance, more um, depth to it. And so I wanted to include recipes in the story, but not as an afterthought. I
Yeah.
wanted them to be part of the narrative. So you're supposed to be reading the recipes in between reading the panels, and it's all supposed to work together to give you a cumulative experience.
Yeah.
Um, from the response, like I wasn't sure that was going to work because I haven't seen that done. But from the response I've had for like the first two issues, people love that. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I haven't seen it done in the way that you're doing it, of having it
yeah.
part of the story. Um, one of the odd shows that I do besides interviews with my wife, we do a comic book themed cooking show.
All right.
And so we find recipes that have been told in comic books, like, oh, this is Green Arrow spicy chili, and we'll do it.
Right.
But it's usually at the tail end of the book
Yeah,
of like,
exactly.
oh, here's so and so's hot chicken sandwich. Here's so and so's this.
Right.
But the way you do it, you weave it through, and it's not an, like you said, it's not an afterthought. It is a part of the story. So
Yeah, and I think the story would read differently if it didn't have those
yeah.
panels there, you know?
Well, because you're telling it too of how you're telling the story. You're in the place, and it's part of the scene. It's a part of the world that you're creating, and it just flows throughout all those pages. So I love how you've crafted it like that. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
um,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to try Rare Flavors recipe sometime.
Yeah, yeah, you absolutely should. People have been DMing me photographs of them cooking, not necessarily the exact same thing in the book, but close enough.
Yeah, you gotta probably, there's probably some workarounds that you got to do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so when you have these ideas, like you said, of like, blue and green and many Desolate Star, do you have like a folder that you kind of just keep files of like, here's an idea that I could have, or like that, like this could work in a superhero story, or like this is something like that I'm gonna wait to tell in a career own story? Like, what's the process for you when it comes to coming of like what you want to create?
There's no process. I don't write down ideas. I don't like to solidify and put things down on
Yeah.
paper. Um, I think it was Stephen King who said he doesn't write down ideas either because he says he just lets them sit there. And if they haven't stopped gnawing at the back of your mind a year later,
Mm.
then it's probably a good idea and worth telling. So, yeah, I'm one of those people. It's weird, right? As a creator, sometimes you have this kind of existential horror of like, "Oh, what if I stop having ideas from tomorrow? What if I can't
Yeah.
write anymore?" And then I'm the kind of person who has the opposite problem in that it's 5 a.m. I can't go to bed. I can't go to sleep because my brain's just going, idea, idea, idea. um, and so the problem with that is if I wrote everything down, then it would be like, I don't know, a phone directory full of half-baked ideas.
Yeah.
I'd rather like just sit on it and then a year later go like, I still want to do that idea I had that one time. So I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. I like that idea. If it's a good enough idea, it's going to stick in the back of your mind. And
Yeah.
and that's, and we're all wired differently. I feel like I have lost a lot of great ideas, like I should do that, and I forget when I'm not even a writer. So
Yeah, yeah, no, it works completely differently
yeah.
for different people. I think it has to do with like I have very short ability to stay focused on things if I'm not obsessed with them.
Yeah.
So it's much nicer for me to leave an idea and see if I am obsessed with any of them. And the ones that I am obsessed with are the ones that I will follow. So then I don't have to put in the effort of actually focusing and concentrating and making sure.
That's
Yeah.
that's so cool. I I was reading, I remember reading in issue 1, there's I think it's a cafe that it's like Cafe Star. Is that a little nod to your previous stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, Philippe put it in there, I assume, as a way to begin the Ram Philippe shared universe.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, it's just a reference. It's just
Yeah.
a quick nod to a thing we did.
So when you presented this idea to Boom and you said, "Hey, did you instantly reach out to the team and say, I think this is the right fit," or was Boom? How did you guys decide that, well, you want to bring the team back to work on
I
this
mean,
one?
it was very much pitched as I would love to do this with the same team
Okay.
because I think it has the same vibe in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. It has the same sort of whimsical. Um, Actually, Layla Star and Rare Flavors are the only two magic realist things that I've done so far, which is to take like a very contemporary, mundane, regular, you and I recognize it kind of world
Yeah.
and then insert this one element of magic into it and treat that element of magic as completely, oh yeah, this is just there. We're going to ignore it. We're not going to give you the explanation of how the gods' powers work, or we're not going to tell you why there's an immortal demon hanging out among us. That part is not important. The
Right.
important stuff is life and death. The important stuff is food. Um, and so I think Philippe's work and Darren's work and Inez, who does the colors, um, I think it just all fits that vibe. And so, frankly, like this was just pitched as I want to do this with the same team. So,
And I'm sure with how the reception of Many Deaths Away with Star was, Boom's like, yep, that works.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And to be honest, like Boom were just excited about the idea of doing this kind of Hannibal Lecter meets Anthony Bourdain kind of thing. You could just tell as soon as I pitched it, they were like, "When do we start?" So, yeah, great.
you I want to respect your time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, like, you seem to like to push the envelope a little bit sometimes of trying unique things and different things, like we said, like, and weaving those recipes through. Just recently you announced you have a new book coming out with Image, where it seems to be with Dan and yourself, of two different books but are telling the same story.
Dan, who's this Dan Waters, and what book is he making?
I don't know, just the
um,
guy who's been in all the detective backup stories, the guy who like loved your Black Mamba Kickstarter. That guy that's been around for a while.
um, no, so we announced The One Hand,
Yeah.
which is yeah, the story of a detective who, on the last day of his retirement, finds out that a serial killer that he was sure he already arrested and put away, the same kinds of murders are starting to happen again. And so that's the premise for my story. And I know Dan, obviously, Dan's a good friend, and he has announced this maybe definitely connected, not connected book called this. So my book is called The One Hand, and his book is called The Six Fingers. And his book follows the story of a young archaeology student with a missing father who's been sort of looking for his father in this city. Um, Wakes up one day, realizes he's had some blackouts, and begins to suspect he might have committed a murder in this extremely ritualistic fashion, and has no idea why he did it. And Dan's story kind of follows that narrative. So now that I've done my tongue-in-cheek stuff, I suppose it's a cat and mouse game, but
Yeah.
I'm writing the cat and Dan's writing the mouse. And you're meant to read both books. They'll come out around the same time. I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks apart from each other. You're supposed to read them as like issue one of mine, issue one of Dan's, two of mine, two of Dan's, three of mine, three of Dan's.
Yeah.
And I keep saying mine and Dan's. Obviously, the artist on my book is Lawrence Campbell of BPRD and 2000 AD fame.
Yep.
Does amazing work. And the artist on Dan's is Sumit Kumar, who worked on These Savage Shores. So yeah, again, in terms of pushing the envelope, definitely one of these things that we wanted to do. Can we tell two separate stories and yet tell a third story that connects all of those things?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, something that I haven't seen done, that I just love the idea of, like, yeah, the art's not in the book. The art can be outside of the book as well, and how the book is made, how the book is experienced, how the book is told.
That's I'm When I saw that, I was just like, I'm so excited for that, because it just sounds like such a, like you said, something that you haven't seen before done. And I think the medium allows it, to
Yeah,
explore
yeah.
something like this. Like, this is, you can't, I don't you that's not something you can do in a movie, as, or a TV show would be a little,
Well,
maybe
I mean,
it,
they have done it in movies before, like Kurosawa doing Rashomon,
yeah.
in that
Okay.
the same story told from various perspectives.
Yeah.
But it's never been done, I think, outside of Clint Eastwood doing it with Letters of Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers. Have same story told from two opposing sides of the war.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it has been done a couple of times in film, certainly not in publishing, certainly not in comics.
Right.
Um, the best reaction you get, and part of this is also because somewhere deep down inside of me is a child who's just like, ha, look at what I did. Um, I sent these issue ones to a few people. I sent them to Eric Stephenson and Image. I sent them to Will Dennis, who's editing the book and a big favorite of mine. Like he's edited some of my favorite books. I sent this to a couple of creators that I really admire, and every time they read both issue ones, there is this moment of like, what? That's amazing. That I mean, I read the individual experience of the issues is great, but then reading both ones one after the other and
Yeah.
having that connection click in your head, there's just this like tremendous joy at seeing someone go like, wait, what did you do? That was cool. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's neat. I'm excited to check it out. Well, Rom, I want to respect your time. I could talk to
Pleasure.
you forever, but is there anything that we haven't hit on that like you'd love to talk about? Because I know you're always staying busy in comics.
No, I mean, everything else I'm doing is currently unannounced, and so I can only hint at things here and there. I've got two projects at DC next year. One this kind of big, sprawling, ambitious, uh, almost universal book, and then the other this very sort of intimate, interesting reinvention of a old character that hasn't been seen in a while. So I'm very excited to do both of those. And then I've got a book at Dark Horse that will be announced shortly. Um, and yeah, I think that's about it. I'm also dabbling in a few things in animation and film and TV stuff, which obviously is on a much longer
Right.
production cycle. So we'll get to that when we get to that.
Nice. Well, Rom, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about comics with me. Where can
Pleasure.
people follow along with you to stay up to date with all the stuff that you are working on and got coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, actually, the best place to stay tuned is on my newsletter. So if you go to www.flybysoul.com, you can sign up there. Very simple to sign up, and then you'll get a weekly, week and a halfly ish newsletter from me, which kind of I prefer. But outside of that, I'm pretty active on Twitter, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
Despite the fact that it feels like tweeting from a raging fire pit.
Yeah,
So
we all that's we're all in the same boat. We feel it.
yeah, I mean, at this point, the only reason I'm still there is like, where else am I gonna go?
Right.
I'm too lazy to start up anywhere else. So it is what it is. Those are probably the best place to follow me. If you prefer the occasionally rare message from me, then I'm also on Instagram on Ram V Writes, where I'm not nearly as active, which is probably a good thing.
So, well, Rom, thanks again. Gang, if
Pleasure.
you are not checking out Detective Comics, do it. Rare Flavors, go check it out. You've got so much stuff coming out. Excited to go see what you're working on continuing. But gang, with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out.
Yeah, yeah. Please read comics.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Cheers. Thanks so much.